Today I'm going to introduce you to Photoshop and how to navigate around this software. We're going to work at creating a new project. You will have an introduction to some of the menus across the top. I'll give you a quick introduction to layers, and then I will show you how to save your file. Along the way, I'm going to introduce you to some new tools, and those tools are going to make probably a file that's going to look somewhat experimental, and that's okay. But you are going to save that file and hand it in for a grade today. And so if you need to pause this video at any time, feel free to do so as I'll move along pretty quickly. Okay, let's begin by creating a new project. So to do that, I'm going to go over here. First of all, I need to launch Photoshop. That is the PS down here at the bottom. You have been using Lightroom before. Today we're going to launch Photoshop, and I have mine launched already. And I'm going to go here on the left to create new, or the menus across the top in any software. Under File, you're probably going to find New Document. In this case, it would be a new project Photoshop file. So New, Command N, then we're going to go to, you can retitle this and name it, excuse me, Photoshop Intro, and then your name. I want it to be 5 inches wide by 3 inches tall, and I want the resolution to be 300 pixels per inch. Some of you might have it already, the default might come up to be pixels, so you're going to need to change that to inches. And then the width will be 5, height is 3, and then change your resolution to 300. Let's make our background white, and let's say create. And that brings me this space that is my artboard. It's my space to develop a project. Okay. One of the things I want to make sure that you have, you're going to always, this is the tools bar over here, the tools menu palette, and then down here on the bottom right is the layers palette. Those are a couple of spaces that I want to make sure you see. So what I'm going to do is direct you up here to the window menu. The menus are across the top along where it says Photoshop. And under this window menu, you should have the tools bar showing. So if yours is not, you can choose to show that, as well as the layers palette. Now notice there are lots of palettes in this list. If at any time you are asked to do something, a specific function, and you don't see the palette that I have or that you're wanting to use, look here and make sure it's check marked, because it will be where you can add it. I like to use properties often, so why don't I go ahead and check mark that. I'm going to pull that right in here, and that way I've got properties right at my disposal whenever I need. Okay, so that is your window menu. We will use multiple things under these menus as we go, but that gives you, for sure, you need to have some of those palettes activated. Okay, now I did show you the layers palette. I want to really quickly show you how to add a layer. You are going to go to this plus sign right down here on the layers palette and hit plus, and there you go. You can, the more layers you add, depending on your project, we're going to use these a lot. As we do some other tools, we're going to do them on different layers. This is how you see or unsee a layer. Let me back up and make sure we put something on that layer so you can understand what's going on. All right, so these are some tools that are going to be most used by you. We will learn, some of these we won't learn in this class, and you can use them in future classes, or you can experiment with them all you want. But first of all, I want you to know that this up here is your move tool. Notice when I put my mouse over top of that tool and wait, it brings up this description for me. So if you're ever unsure about which tool, just put your mouse on there and wait for a moment, and it will tell you the name of it. It also tells you that I could click the M and that would take me to this tool. And this is the marquee tool, which we will use often. So the first tool is the move tool, and I want you to see all I'd have to do if I wanted to get to the move tool quickly is click a V on my keyboard. The other thing I want you to be aware of, there's this small triangle next to the move tool, and if I click on that, it brings up other choices. So maybe I want to do something with the artboard tool. I just need to remember that it's tucked in behind the move tool. They're not both accessible at the same time. So I want to switch that back because I rarely use the artboard tool. I'm going to keep it in the move tool. I use that all the time. Okay, the next tool I want to show you is the marquee tool. And now you're going to get busy here. So this is meant for creating a selection. So if you click and drag, it will bring up what I call the dancing ants. And the dancing ants just represent an area that is selected, and Photoshop is all about making selections. So while we have our dancing ants out, I want you to go up to the Edit menu, Edit, and I want you to go to Fill. This is going to bring up some choices. I can choose to fill with the foreground color, which right now, if you look down here at the bottom left corner of the toolbar, is black. The background color, if you look down here at the toolbar, is currently set to white. Or I could choose another color of my choosing. This is called the color picker. So I want to choose a nice, pretty turquoise. Let's say OK. Now, opacity is how transparent something is. So I'm going to choose, let's just say, let's make this 75%. And I'm going to say OK. And it's going to fill my selection only with that color at 75% filling. Notice what happened over here on my layer. I now have that box on this layer, and this is what I want to show you. This eye on that layer indicates layer visibility, as you can read there. And if I turn that off, there goes my layer, or visibility of the layer. I should be clear. All right. Let's click down to layer 1, please. Let's go back down to layer 1, and I want to show you the polygonal lasso tool. The polygonal lasso tool has some other choices behind it as well. So does the marquee tool. But this purpose of this tool is to help you click select an area. So I am going to click off of this, and then I go to this tool. I am going to, now that I'm on layer 1, I'm going to make a mountain shape. So I'm going to make just a really jagged line. And then as I click, I hope you can hear me clicking. And then to finish my polygonal lasso, I essentially come back to the very beginning point, and it creates that circle on my tool. And now I have a selection that is unique, and it's not rectangle. I was able to create a unique selection in this way, very much based on straight lines though, and points as I clicked. This time, I'm going to change this color. I'm going to go click on that. I'm going to change this to red. I'm going to go back up to Edit. I'm going to Fill Color, and I'm going to fill this with 100%. Whoops, I meant to fill it with red. I didn't change this. I'm going to fill it with my foreground color. There we go. Okay. Now, if I click on here, it's going to start a new lasso. So that can get kind of crazy. So what I want to do is make sure that I click off of there with a tool that won't start a new one. And then if I want to, I can go up to my Move tool, and I can move this around. Now you might remember that we had created this on layer 1, and layer 2 had the blue box, and the transparency was set to 75% on that, and that is why you can see through this blue box onto the mountains that I created. If I switch their places, you click and hold and drag until you've got the space you want to let go in. Now I have this mountains on top and the blue on the bottom. Okay. Next thing I want to show you is your paintbrush tool. Okay. Your paintbrush tool, you will use a decent amount as we learn to mask objects. Mostly right now, I want to show you how this works a little bit. So let's say I want to paint in black. I was with red a minute ago. I can put that back. But in order to restore my black and white setting, I can click on this little black and white thing right there, those tiny little black and white swatch, and that will restore that. The little arrows right here next to that are meant to swap them, switch those two colors. And when I switch them right now, my foreground color, that means the one it's going to use automatically, is white. The background color is black. So I'm going to switch those. The black is my foreground color and white is my background. And I'm going to go to my paintbrush, and then across the top you'll find a lot of settings that adjust things. And I want to go, this is the place that I can adjust the size of my brush. I can adjust the hardness of my brush if I want it to be softer edges or very clean edges. I can also go to these brushes up here that are presets. There's presets here. Lots of options for you when it comes to brushes. There's some that are, and I want you to explore in here as much as you'd like. There's some pretty cool things you can do. So let's go to this one. And let's see what size it makes it here. And I can also rotate it here. Okay, so I'm just going to do a swatch with this brush. And it started with that color. Oh. Okay, I accidentally hit the wrong tool in there. I hit the smudge tool. Smudge tool was pretty cool, mind you. It did a smudge in that. Now you know what a smudge will do. But the paintbrush is what I was going for. And I want to, and again, this is just experimental. Oh, that particular brush takes you down and creates a smudge. That's what happened. Okay. All right, I want to go here. And I want that to be much bigger because I want to be able to see it with you guys. Okay. So I want to just demonstrate that I've messed with my brush tool right here. Very good. Maybe I don't like it. I'm going to hit Edit, Undo Brush Tool. Edit, Undo will undo your previous step. I'm going to make it just a little smaller. Make it smaller like this. And all right, there's my brush tool. Notice that I have that on the same exact layer as the blue. If I hide that layer, I'm going to hide both of those. In fact, all of those steps I put on that same layer. Okay. Next thing I want to show you is the text tool. That is this T on the tools palette. And we're going to use the text tool to label our other spaces on this project. And I am going to click right here. I'm going to move this up. And that is some default text in there, and it's huge right now. I clicked once, and it is in there, but it is way too big. And you're going to ask me, how in the world do I change that? Each one of you, depending on the settings of your Photoshop, that will vary. The easiest way for me to select text that's too large like that is going to be to double click on this T down here in the layers palette. So I'm going to double click on that. It's going to select it, and it looks crazy, but up here on the top is where I can edit that down to size. There we go. This is something I can work with. I'm going to bring that down. And when I want to move it around, if I'm here inside of that text, it's going to change to that cursor where I edit. It looks like that eye with a line in it. But if I want to move that text, as I move away from that, it changes to a move tool for me. So I wanted to move around it. So I'm going to put that right here. And then I'm going to label this. I'm going to type in brush tool. Let's set it right in there. Okay, so that's now my layer has renamed to whatever is typed in for my text. One of the easiest things, you're welcome to start a new piece of text, or I like to copy an existing one because I know I've set it like I like. So I'm going to grab that layer and hang on to it and drag on top of my plus sign until I get a new one and it made a copy. Then I can double click on that one. And now I'm going to name what's going to go with my blue over here, and that was the marquee tool. And it's kind of on top of the other one, but I'm going to move it right over here and it won't be anymore. Okay. Now I'm going to copy my marquee tool, and I want to label the polygonal lasso tool. That was this guy. And my move tool, I don't have any way of labeling. And the text tool, how am I going to label that, right? Because we already used it. The tool that I want you to see, we're going to move to next. I'm going to go back to my move tool just as my centering. That's kind of the place I go when I don't have any other job I want to do and I'm looking around. But I do want to show you the magnify or the zoom tool. And I could click Z on my keyboard, but it simply, if I want to grow the size of my project so I can get more detail, I can hit my plus sign, or I click, and as it's a plus sign, I can also reduce the size here. Up here at the top is where you can make changes. I could say fit screen, I could say fill screen, and then I could say 100%. These are nice hot buttons. The option key, when I click the option key, it toggles between these. So that's a nice way if you keep your hand close to your buttons on your keyboard. Sometimes it brings you up options that you'll get used to using. So that's how you can work in more detail. Say I wanted to get in here and select certain things, I would want to be in detail there. Okay. And that should about do it for what I want you to do today. The only other thing that I would add is let's bring in a photo. And you can do this by grabbing any photo on your computer, and you're going to go to File, and we're going to say Place Embedded. And this is when you're going to navigate to a place on your computer, or you can use a photo on your cloud. I'm going to use one off of my string. You can navigate to your folder if you're on a computer that you're used to using. You can also open cloud documents. I'm going to choose this photo by Libby Kohler. She took in art class. Put it in here. Now it is in the process of placing in my document. And there's some really important things I want you to notice. We have our brackets here. When I adjust those, I can fill in my photo inside of the area. Notice it's going to cut off here at the edge of my artboard. When I'm done and I like that selection, well, the other thing I want you to see is it will not let me stretch that, which is a good thing. It won't unless I hit my shift key and then I stretch it. But I need you to know this is a major no-no. Ever, ever, ever. You should never stretch a photo unless there's a very unique reason. Somehow, very unique. I'm not a fan of stretched photos. They make problems. Not only, they just don't represent the truth. They change people, and that's not what they would appreciate. So to keep this and apply those settings, I can click this check mark up here. Now, this came in, notice it came in on a new layer, and I want it to come down here. So I'm going to move it down under my colors, and I also want to bring it back bring it back right in there. And we're going to use that blue is going to just kind of overlap that a little bit. Okay, I've obviously just been experimenting myself in here. So this is just meant to show you different things you can do. If you have an effect that you would like to pull, your photo kind of comes through behind, but maybe you have some text that you want to place on top. Let's try that. Can you read this? I'm going to make that smaller. I can change my font here. I'm going to move it. It would be harder to read that text if that box was 100, or you wouldn't be able to see the photo behind it and the text as well if it was 100%. So it just gives you a nice effect when you're trying to make some layered looks. Okay. That is it for today. Let's save this document. We're going to do File. We're going to go to File and say Save. And please save it to your cloud documents. However, if your cloud documents are not available to you, occasionally we've had that problem, go ahead and save it to the folder that we have on the hard drive of the computer you are on, and then make sure it's got your name in the file. You're going to want to also export that file. The document you just created is a PSD file, which means it's a Photoshop document and it has its layers in it, which is very helpful, and I'll explain that later. But you also need a PNG file or a JPEG in order to have a compressed file. And I'm going to save that to the desktop. In this case, I'm going to hit Save. And then we're going to have, if I go down here to the blue and white guy, go to the desktop, you will see that I have both. This is my Photoshop intro, your name PNG file, and I saved the other one on the cloud, so you can't see that one as easily. That JPEG you will then upload to the Padlet, and you can also import it into Canvas to hand in for this assignment.